Alright, kings and queens, so for our first flip classroom video for algebra, we're going to talk about multi-step equations. Alright, so this should all be a review, but sometimes we need a little bit of a refresher. So our essential question says, how do we write and solve one and multi-step equations? So before we start solving equations, let's go ahead and define some vocabulary. So the first vocabulary that we need says an open sentence. So an open sentence is a math statement that contains algebraic expressions and symbols. The next thing we need to talk about is an equation, okay? So something we're familiar with, but the definition is a sentence that contains an equal sign. Next it says a replacement set. So this may be somewhat new, but a replacement set is a set of numbers a set of numbers which replaces, or which we, from which from which replacements for a variable may be chosen. Okay, next we have a solution set. So a solution set is a set of elements from the replacement set that make an open sentence true. Another important thing to note is when we talk about sets, I'm going to make it a note under here. Alright, set or sets use brackets. So if we look at example 1 says find the solution set of the equation 2q plus 5 equals 13. That means if the replacement set is 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. So we're going to use our values for q and substitute them in to our equation, okay? And see if any of these values make our statement true. So if I first start with 2, I'm going to start with 2 times 2 plus 5, and we want to know, does that equal 13? Well, if I think about 2 times 2, that's 4. And 4 plus 5 is 9. That does not equal 13. So that means that statement is going to be false. Okay? So let's try 3. 2 times 3 plus 5. Alright, so 2 times 3 is 6. 6 plus 5 is 11. That also does not equal 13. So that means that statement is also false. Okay? So now if I go to 4, 2 times 4 Now 2 times 4 is 8 plus 5. That does equal 13. So far, 4 makes that statement true. Okay, now if I try 5, 2 times 5 is 10 plus 5. That does not equal 13. That actually equals 15. So that statement is false. And then last but not least, 2 times 6 is 12 plus 5 equals 17, and that is not equal to 13. So that means that this is false. Okay, so the only thing that actually made our solution or our set true was the value 4. So my solution set is going to be 4. So I'm going to put 4 in brackets. Okay? Let's skip down to the next page. Okay, so now we're going to move in to actually solving these different equations. So it says in order to solve one set of equations, we have to isolate the variable using inverse operations. So remember, inverse operations just mean that we want to use the opposite operation that's being used. So in number 1, my variable is going to be x. So that's what I want to isolate. Okay, so to isolate that variable, I have to do the opposite of what's being done. So 7 is being added to that x. So in order to undo that, I need to subtract 7 from both sides. Okay, so when I subtract 7 from both sides, okay, when I subtract 7 from both sides, I get x is equal to 12. Alright, because positive 7 minus 7, those cancel out. And then 19 minus 7 is 12. Okay? So I want you guys to go ahead and try x minus 9 equals 16, and then we'll go over this in class tomorrow. Okay, so after we finish this video, I want you guys to go back and try number 2. Okay? The next one says, let's practice using order of operations. Okay, so when we talk about order of operations, I have to work from inside out. So I have 7 minus, and in parentheses, alright, let's take care of that exponent. I have 4 squared, which is 16 minus 10 plus n equal to 10. Okay, just clean that up a little bit. So then I have 7 minus 16 minus 10 is 6 plus n equals 10. Alright, 7 minus 6 equals to 1. So I have 1 plus n equals 10. So now I have a simple equation to work with, but 1 is being added to n. So in order to get rid of that 1, you gotta subtract 1 from both sides. Alright? Then when I subtract them, I get that n is equal to 9 as my answer. Okay, so let's keep moving. The next thing we need to talk about is how do we translate sentences into an equation? Okay, so if I look at part A, it says 7 times a number squared is 5 times the difference of k minus m. So let's break this down into pieces, okay? So the first part says 7 times a number squared. So we don't know what that number is. Let's just call that number x, okay? And then in the beginning it says 7 times that number. Alright, so 7 times a number squared is. So is another word for equals. Okay, so 7 times a number squared is 5 times the difference of k and m. So the difference of k and m just means subtraction. So the difference of k and m will be 5 times that. So that's how we translate a sentence into an equation. So that reads 7x squared equals 5 times k minus m. Or 7 times a number, 7 times my number squared equals 5 times the difference of k and m. right? So part B should be a little bit easier, and I also want you guys to try that as well. We'll talk about that in class tomorrow. Okay, let's keep moving on down. So let's try and solve these equations, alright? So step one says using inverse operations, we have to isolate the variable. Okay, so my first equation I have c minus 22 is equal to 54. Alright, my operation is subtraction, so the opposite of that is addition. So I want to add 22 on both sides. When I solve that, I get c is equal to 76, and that is my answer. Alright, remember, if we want to check our work, we can substitute this number back into our original equation. Okay, let's take a look at number 2. I have 63 plus m is equal to 79. So in this one, 63 is being added to m, and I want to get m by itself. So in order to get m by itself, I will subtract 63 from both sides. Okay? So, m is going to be equal to 16. 79 minus 63 is equal to 16. And then number 3, last but not least, I have 39 equals negative 3r. So negative 3 is being multiplied by r. So the opposite of multiplication is division. So I need to divide both sides by negative 3. So r is going to be equal to negative 13. Okay? So let's keep going. We're almost finished. I know this video is getting a little long. But the next one says step 1. Using inverse operation, first you have to undo addition or subtraction. And next you have to isolate the variable by undoing multiplication or division. So this is used for two-step equations. So first it says using inverse operations, we have to undo addition and subtraction. So if I look at number 1, 4 is being subtracted from 11x. So to undo that, I have to add 4 to both sides. Okay, so I have 11x equals, because this cancels out, 29 plus 4 is equal to 33. So this is a simple one-step equation now. 11x equals 33. 11 is being multiplied by x, so to undo that, I have to divide by 11 on both sides. And x is going to be equal to 3. Okay. Now if I look at number 2. Number 2 says 2a minus 6 equals 4. So 6 is being subtracted, so I want to add 6 to both sides. Okay, so that's going to cancel, but I'm left with 2a equals 4 plus 6 equals 10. Alright, so now I have 2a equals 10. In order to get that a by itself, I have to divide both sides by 2. Alright, then I'm left with a is equal to 5. Okay, and last but not least, let's go ahead and try number 3. So I have a plus 7 divided by 8 is equal to 5. Now this is a little bit different because we have a fraction, or we have things being divided by 8. So when we have things being divided by 8, let's go ahead and multiply the whole entire thing by 8. If I multiply this first part by 8, those 8's cancel. So I'm left with 8 plus 7 equals, and I also have to multiply it by 5. And 5 times 8 is 40. From here we can solve that. So 8 plus 7, we're going to subtract 7 on both sides. Alright, those cancel. And I'm left with a is equal to 40 minus 7, which is 33. Okay? And then let's try our last problem. Okay, so I have n plus 2 plus n plus 4 equals negative 51. Alright, this one looks a little overwhelming, but it's not. Remember, we have to combine like terms. Alright, so when I see it, I see 3 n's that need to be combined. Alright, then I have to look at my whole numbers. 2 plus 4 is going to be 6 equals negative 51. Alright, simple two-step equation. I'm going to subtract 6 from both sides. Alright, and then it gives me 3n. Alright, remember, same sign, add and keep the sign, so negative 51 minus 6 is negative 57. And if I divide by 3 on both sides, I get n is equal to negative 19. Let me rewrite it. N is equal to negative 19. Alright guys, so that pretty much sums up everything we needed to do for this video. You need to go back and re-look at your notes, make sure you guys do that. Don't worry about the summary, we'll do that in class tomorrow. Have a good evening.